Today I have Dr. Wendie Trubow, and we will be chatting about environmental toxins. So I am going to dive into Dr. Wendy's bio here. And so Dr. Wendy is a functional medicine gynecologist with a thriving practice at 5 Journeys, and she is passionate about helping women optimize their health and lives. And through who struggles with mold and metal toxicity, celiac disease, and other health issues, Dr. Trubow has developed a deep sense of compassion and expertise for what her patients are facing. And she is co-author of Dirty Girl, Ditch the Toxins, Look Great, and Feel Freaking Amazing, which again, it's a great book. Great title, first of all, but also a great book. And again, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Wendy.
My pleasure. Thanks, Eric. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you. Why don't we go ahead and if you could talk about why you decided to write the book, get a little bit into your backstory.
Sure. So when I was 48, I went off the cliff and I blamed it on perimenopause. And in reality, it was because I had really gotten a level of toxic exposure that I was now showing symptoms from. So I had a lead exposure in September, went just before turning 48. And then in April, the next year I was 48, and we went to Notre Dame right after it had burned down, and we slogged through the dust, came home, and I gained 9 pounds, had a rash on my face. It was like on my eyes, on my nose, under my lip. I wanted to rip off my face, and then my hair was falling out in droves. And I was like, what's going on? And it took me a few months to figure it out. I mean, I do functional medicine, so I applied all the functional medicine testing to myself. My thyroid was fine, perfect, never better. Amazingly, because I always been a little bit off. My adrenals were good. My gut looked good. My minerals, nutrients looked good. And I'm like, what's going on? Finally, at the end of the summer, I heard a report on NPR that said that when Notre Dame burned, 500 tons of lead was released into the air. And the closer you were to Notre Dame, the more exposure you got. The farther away you were, the less exposure you got. And I was like, we were legit there right after it burned. And so I looked at my husband and I said, oh my God, I must have gotten a lead exposure. It's not perimenopause. Hashtag not perimenopause. It's lead. So I did the testing and I was higher. And then I did the testing for mycotoxins, and I had 4 strains of mycotoxins, which are the toxins that mold puts out when it's in your body. And then I was like, well, in for a penny, in for a pound, I'll do all the testing. And I tested environmental toxins, which is things like gasoline fumes, nail polish, makeup, plastics, flame retardants, and I was positive for a whole bunch of those. And I looked at my husband and I said, I am such a dirty girl. And then I went, we need to write that book, because if I have all these toxins, and I mean, look, Eric, I'm the poster child. I don't eat gluten. I have celiac, so I don't eat gluten. I don't eat dairy, cow's dairy. I don't eat sugar. I don't eat processed carbs. I don't drink alcohol. We eat organic food. Like, what's there to give up, right? And yet I have all these toxins. So if I'm doing all this work and this is what I have, what does everyone else have? So that's why we wrote the book.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, as most people know, we do live in a toxic world, but someone like you just eating clean diet, and I'm sure doing other things to try to reduce your toxic load, yet you had a higher toxic load. And it just makes you wonder if someone like you is taking such good care of your body. And on average, I mean, I'm sure people listening to this, a lot of people are doing things to improve their health and eating healthy, but again, those people also could have higher toxic loads, just like you did. So it's great that you wrote the book. And again, I've read the book. So as I was telling Wendy before this interview, I have all my questions. I wrote notes and all that. I can't say I do that with what most of the people I interview, I do research, and I usually try to see if they are on a podcast. But here I actually wrote down notes, and part of it was selfish, just because I wanted to learn too from reading the book too. I wanted to benefit from the information.
I am every person. Like, it's not special. I'm not special. It's every person has this. And nobody gets through the toxins testing negative. They come out and they're like, oh, I'm so cool, I have nothing. Nope. If you live on this earth, you've got these too.
Exactly. So
it's horrifying. Sorry. Bad news. You need a hashtag like bad news podcast. It's depressing, but it's fixable. I think that's really the take home message, is it's fixable.
Yeah, and that's the good news. I mean, no matter what we do, we can't completely eliminate the environmental toxins.
No.
But yeah, like you said, the good news, we could do things to minimize our exposure, to
Yeah.
reduce our toxic load. And that's, of course, is what your book's about. And then you're gonna, share some of the things here, of course, that you could do as well. Let's see. Let's go ahead and I'm gonna dive into these questions here because again, there's so many different things. So
I know.
yeah, that's the thing. I don't know where to start just because I know we're not going to get to everything. So I wanted to make sure to at least get some of the more important things. So how about, and again, you could always interject, but how about xenoestrogens, the endocrine disruptors? Just because my audience,
Yeah.
most of them have thyroid conditions, autoimmune thyroid conditions. And so if you could talk a little bit about those.
I totally can, but I think we should go up a step, like go up a level before we dive into that, if it's okay, and just talk about like,
Sure.
where do you get this stuff from? And what do you need to look out for? And how do you think about it? So, if you think about anything can be a toxin. Too much sugar, too much alcohol, too much smoking, too much sleep, too much sex, too much stress, whatever. So, we're looking at the things that we're exposed to on a regular basis that are causing problems. So then the way to think about it is, what are you putting in your body directly? What are you eating, drinking? Are you using plastic water bottles? Are you drinking alcohol? Are you eating sugar? Is your food organic? Are you eating grass-fed, grass-finished meat or not? What's going in there? What's going on there? Makeup products, shampoo, body washes, lotions, makeup, all of that on your body. And then what's around you? That's your environment. Do you live near a highway? Do you live near a golf course or a farm where they're spraying? Do you have poor air quality, water quality? That goes back to in you. All these things around you. Do you pump your own gas? Do you have an electric car? There's lots of layers of things. And so when you're looking at toxins, what you want to start to do is be systematic and go, okay, I think it's easiest to start with, what are you putting in your body? And that's where the xenoestrogens often come in. So plastic water bottles are everywhere, man. Like you cannot get away from them. And the parts in which they're so harmful is when you're putting it in your body. So the plastic water bottles, when they leach, they leach these xenoestrogens into the water, or think of kombucha. Nobody ever thinks, oh, it's in a plastic bottle, but that's how kombucha comes at Whole Foods, plastic bottle. Or those juices that come in a plastic bottle. So it's not just water, but it's anything in plastic that you're putting in your body. So that also includes things like, if you have food, if you're storing particularly warm food in plastic, it's leaching into your food. So they go into your body and it mimics what your body thinks of as hormones, and it confuses the body and disrupts your normal hormones and throws it off. So they're called xenoestrogens. They're just as hard to get rid of for a lot of people as other toxins. And because they're everywhere, they start to build up, and they particularly impact the endocrine system, and within that, the thyroid. So the poor little thyroid is like, what are you doing to me? It's just being it's like waves crashing on the shore. It never ends. So yeah, xenoestrogens can be particularly harmful for the thyroid, high and low, and autoimmune. It's all three.
And a few things to point out, which I know you mentioned in your book. It's not just about BPA. So some people will say, well, if I have a
Right.
BPA-free water bottle, so there's other analogs like BPS, BPF. I don't remember all of them, but from what the research shows, some of those I think are even worse than, or at least just as bad as BPA, correct?
Yeah, here's the problem, Eric. Okay, so we've been really effective at putting out hundreds of thousands of synthetic chemicals, materials, substitutes, and only about 500 of them have been tested for whether they're harmful. So the biggest issue is that often in our quest to continue iterating and make it better or make it less harmful, it's not being tested. And so it can often be more harmful than the original. But how do you quantify harm, right? If you have cancer, it's bad whether it's cancer or cancer. Like either way, when you say the word cancer, it's still bad. So what I would say is, I'm not necessarily looking for is, do you want to level up on your plastic? No, I'm not looking for going to a better plastic. I'm looking for, let's get rid of the plastic wherever possible. So making choices that mitigate it and try not to bring in another source as you're mitigating.
Yeah,
It can
good.
be hard.
Yeah, you're right. One thing I put in my notes too, just because I wanted to say it, just so others, again, hopefully others will be reading your book. But one thing that you mentioned is that I think a study actually showed that we're eating about 2,000 tiny pieces of plastic per week, and you said it's
Yeah.
equivalent to eating a plastic credit card each week.
And in a year, yeah, it's crazy. Not a week, a year, but there's microparticles everywhere. And it's funny, I was talking to someone who's really into fish, and he was like, the problem with the fish is that all the fish are contaminated now because all the plastic, the microparticles wind up in the fish and they eat it, and it doesn't get digested and broken down. And if it does, it goes into their body. So we eat the fish, we eat the plastic. It's really endemic.
Yeah, real scary. Because when we talk
Yeah,
about fish, a lot of people are concerned about the heavy metals like
right,
mercury, but
right.
there's many other toxins as well that they get exposed to. So that's a great point with the fish. And actually, that's a good question. Do you recommend? I know everything's risk versus benefit. So where do you
Right.
stand when it comes to fish? Recommending, let's say, wild salmon or other types of fish, or do you just tell your patients to refrain from the fish?
Isn't that funny, right? Because I was talking about if you're getting plastic when you're eating the fish that's wild caught, but the fish that's farm raised, you're not getting the wild caught, but you're also not getting, they don't have as much freedom to run around, and the diet that they're fed is not as matched to what they need. And so there is a trade-off. I never, ever, 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 ever eat the high mercury fish, period. It's just not negotiable. We don't eat it. And it's so funny. Even the moderate mercury fish, my one of my family members made a fish that was, I think it was, I forget what it was, but it was black cod actually. And I was like, I think that's a high mercury fish, and it was high enough that it was considered moderate. I was like, I'm not eating this. I mean, God, I've spent years trying to get rid of my toxins. I'm not going to retox. So I say to people, you have to live on this earth. So let's start with, you have to live on this earth. It has to work for you. I have 4 kids, and my mother-in-law and my mom eat with us a lot, and we have a live-in nanny. So we often have 9 people eating, and we don't live on a farm. So we don't have access to as much as people who might have, live in the South and have year-round growing stuff. So you want to make it work for your life, okay? And just try to pick a better choice. So if you can do wild caught, yeah, that's great for the cold water fish. If you can't, don't go crazy over it. Just don't eat the high mercury fish that are wild caught because they've eaten all the other fish and aggregated all the mercury in them. So I would draw a line there. And then I would say, you sometimes, depending on where you live, you might not be able to get either wild or farmed, depending on what's local and fresh. So it's a navigation process.
Can we talk about heavy metals? Start wherever you'd like to start. Mercury,
Yeah.
cadmium, arsenic, lead. You mentioned lead earlier, of course.
Yeah. Pick your poison, right? So they're really common, and they're really common in a lot of people. I mean, my almost 18-year-old has mercury. I'm sure it's from me. So there's a lot. So when you separate it into the generation, so if you're 75 and older, you were exposed because it wasn't as regulated. So you were exposed to mercury, which is the fillings, and fish. And then you were exposed to lead from chemical processes, and they had lead pipes. 10 million homes in the United States still have lead pipes. Okay? So, and these are all in some ways able to, well, they create an inflammatory state, and for some people they're going to manifest as high or low thyroid, autoimmune disease. So the inflammation itself leads to disease, and however your body goes down the path of disease, you can show up with that. So the metal is the lead pipes, and then anyone who lives in a home built before 1978 most likely has lead in the paint. And so when you hear about people who are like, oh, I did a weekend warrior, I knocked down the wall, I made this great thing, I'm like, oh, you got exposed to lead. So anytime you enter that paint, or even living in that house, as it settles, it dusts, and you breathe it, you eat it, you touch it, you absorb it. So that's the lead, the mercury. The cadmium is from oysters. West Coast oysters have high levels of cadmium. Some batteries have cadmium. And so you can get exposed that way. And then the arsenic, everyone knows about the rice. That's the most common way we get exposed to it. And thallium, which is also coming from the organic vegetables from California. I would put that acute exposure can make you very sick. High exposure can make your hair fall out. Typically, people don't aggregate it as much as the lead and mercury, which we, and sometimes cadmium. I don't see a lot of cadmium exposure. I'm on the East Coast though, so we're not eating West Coast oysters. They're not fresh.
Yeah. You said thallium is in organic vegetables from I think you did mention that in your book, from California.
Yeah, the soil's contaminated, so it's just grown organically, which is great. And you do get higher level. The green leafy vegetables have high levels of thallium in them.
Is there anything people could do? Like, I know there's those rinses, or they can make their own rinse. Does that help at all? Or?
No, but here's what I'll say. Alcohol is really stressful for the liver and our bodies and the adrenals and the gut. And so when you drink alcohol, the body is changing its focus from normal detox to alcohol detox. And so if you're looking at what are the ways to support my liver and improve my detox, the first thing I would say is don't drink alcohol, because it's so stressful and it distracts your liver from doing what it normally does. And then it says, oh, it's a toxin. I got to detox from the toxin. And particularly if you're female, we're not set up to deal with alcohol the same way men are. So even 2 drinks a night is way too much for a lot of women.
Yeah, and then another factor, it can increase permeability of the gut. I mean, maybe if you just drink a little bit, it might not. But again, a lot of people tuning in have autoimmune conditions such as Hashimoto's, Graves' disease. So just another reason to try to avoid alcohol. And I did see, when I did some research for one of my past books, and even red wine, so that, because people ask all the time about red wine, white wine, but there's actually some studies that even red wine increased the permeability of the gut. So, and not to mention the toxins, especially if you're not getting like an organic wine as well. So
yeah, I would agree with that and say if you put yourself in 2 buckets. If you're perfectly healthy, cool, you can have a couple of drinks a week. If you're struggling with any issue, particularly autoimmune, endocrine, then I would say alcohol is not your friend and it's setting you back. And I know that's not popular. Usually at this point in the podcast, people are like, okay, I'm done. Click. They're done. But it really is very harmful for the liver, the adrenals, and the gut.
How about aluminum? What's your thoughts on aluminum, and how frequently do you see that in your practice?
Not as frequently, actually. I mean, you can aluminum foil, so you can get it. So it's so funny. My family thinks I'm crazy. I'm like, don't put the food right on the aluminum. We don't need to be getting that. Put it on the parchment paper and hope that, it's like, I'm not making my own parchment paper and I'm not making my own aluminum. So I have to trust that at some level, the chain is clean or cleaner. So I would say I don't see any toxicity from aluminum all that often, and I don't see high levels typically. You really have to use a lot of aluminum for it to add up. It's just not one that I see that often.
Okay. And when it comes to testing, are you using like provoked urinary testing? Or?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we do a baseline test to make sure that there's no acute exposure that we've missed. Maybe someone did a weekend warrior project and they got a huge exposure. That should show up on the baseline test. And then we're looking at a provoked test. And the reason you want to provoke it is your body knows these metals are very toxic. So you are not going to have it in your bloodstream unless you can't cope with it, unless you have overload. So you're going to store it in your bones, your organs, and your brain. So the provoked testing pulls it out from the storage depots and fat. Bones, organs, fat, brain. So you're going to pull it out so that you can actually start to get a sense of what's going on here. Is it worrisome? Is it not worrisome?
Yeah. And for those listening who aren't familiar with the provocation testing, there's different chelating agents. So I'm guessing you use different ones like EDTA, DMPS. Or...
We use DMSA in our practice, and we get it from the compounding pharmacy. They make it up for us. And then when we do IVs, we use EDTA, DMPS.
Okay.
And then sometimes, and we use EDTA orally at home too. And we use kind of everything, but for provoking, we use DMSA.
All right. And then also, I think in your book, at least I have it in my notes, unless if I wrote it down wrong, you said one of the major sources of mercury, also corn syrup, right? So it's not just the fish and the
Right.
silver fillings.
Right. So for people who eat a lot of high fructose corn syrup, the process used to make that high fructose corn syrup has mercury, and it's a contaminant, and it gets into the high fructose corn syrup. And by the way, high fructose corn syrup also has really high levels of glyphosate and pesticides, because think of it, you're concentrating everything in that corn syrup, in corn, you're concentrating into this syrup. You've boiled it down, and the pesticides and the persistent organic pollutants, they don't get removed. And the mercury is present because of the processing. It's used as a processing aid. It's kind of crazy that
Yeah,
that's
wow.
being put in our food.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. And yeah, thanks for I didn't know that has a lot of glyphosate. I know a lot of things have a lot of glyphosate.
Right.
I guess we could chat a little bit about glyphosate. So what can people do about glyphosate? I guess pretty much is it just try to eat organic and make sure you have drink purified water.
Yeah, so glyphosate's the most commonly used herbicide in the world. And in 2014, in the United States, we used 400 million pounds of glyphosate on the crops. People use it on their lawn, their landscapers use it. It's called Roundup in the commercial use. So it's applied to everything. It's also applied as a desiccant. So after you've harvested, it's applied to the fields to dry them out faster so that they don't get moldy, and also the product. So it's used in a lot of different manners. And it was originally developed as an antibiotic. And so as an antibiotic, it has microbiome disruptive capability. So it disrupts the microbiome, and then it's classified as a probable carcinogen by the World Health Organization, and it's associated. So, it's hard to say, like, you're in medicine. You can't say this causes this. You're not allowed to say that, but you can say it's implicated in 4 separate cancers. So it's not in your favor. So when you're looking at trying to get rid of it, one of the low hanging fruits is to say, okay, I'm going to eat organic because they're not putting glyphosate on their crops. But there is contamination that happens. So if you're eating chickpeas, all the chickpeas in the United States are contaminated. So you do your best, right? Try for the organic, but you're going to get some. There's drift. So organic farm on the right, non-organic on the left, non-organic sprays, wind blows, and it gets onto the organic crops. So there's a lot of contamination that'll happen that way. So if you have glyphosate, it is pretty easily removed from the body as long as you're not taking in so much that you've loaded the system. So it's pretty readily water soluble. If you improve your liver function, sweat, get enough rest, and avoid filling the pump up with glyphosate, it should be pretty easy to come out.
Okay, that's good to know. So just try your best to minimize exposure and do things to improve your liver health, and that will help as well, not only with glyphosate, but of course with all other toxins.
Yeah.
And so earlier you mentioned, when giving your backstory, you mentioned you did urinary mycotoxin testing. So I wanted to ask you a quick question about coffee, just because I'm not a coffee drinker, but a lot of my patients are, and I don't really tackle the mycotoxin issue, the molds issue with the coffee beans, but is that something? I'm tackling it now. I'm at least bringing it up now because I want to get your opinion as far as.
This is like alcohol. Like taking away coffee is like taking away alcohol. So we could talk about it, but people are going to be mad at you.
Yeah, and even if someone insists on drinking coffee, I'll have them, I'll recommend drinking an organic, a good brand, but organic doesn't necessarily mean mold free, correct?
Nope. No. So there's 2 brands I know of that are specifically tested for mycotoxins in the coffee. And one is Bulletproof and one is Purity. I'm sure there's more out there. I just haven't tested them. I don't drink coffee. If you could imagine me, this is how I am. So I would not do well all hopped up on anything. So I don't drink coffee either. But coffee is very moldy, as are grains. So if you're eating a lot of grains, those are really high in ochratoxin. So you're going to want to minimize the grains, minimize the coffee. Those are big sources for people when they're getting exposed.
Okay. Yeah. seems like I won't say, well, yeah, I guess most of the time if I do urinary mycotoxin tests, when I do it, usually I use Great Plains Lab. I know there's also
Yeah.
real-time laboratory
Yep.
as well. But yeah, ochratoxin is very commonly high. And so that's
Yeah.
many, and I think it also could come from indoor air sources, but it's good that you mentioned
Yeah.
that because a very common source is the food as well.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Food and water damaged buildings. Those are the ways you get it.
yep. How about fluoride? Can you talk a little bit about fluoride?
I'm not a huge fan of fluoride, but I'm going to get like in trouble for saying too much about fluoride, but it is a toxin. And so, uh, I, can we move on?
Yeah, we can move on to, so there's plenty of other toxins to talk about. So,
Yeah.
well, let me get your opinion. I think you did mention, I'm not sure, but did you mention microwaving in the book? What are your thoughts on microwaving? Even though it's
Yeah.
not really toxin related directly, but it is. I mean, when talk about radiation, EMFs.
Yeah. I mean, so it's not well studied. And my friend was giving me grief because like one of the examples I give in the book is our daughter did the science experiment where she fed a plant that was microwaved water and cooled, and then Bunsen burner water cooled. The plant with the microwave water died. And he's like, that's an N of one. You can't quote that. I'm like, dude, I can quote it, but it's not well studied, but it does kill the food. And so you're diminishing the quality of the food by throwing it in the microwave. And then the next layer is if you're using a prepackaged food, then it's inevitably got chemicals, pesticides, plastics. It's stored in plastic often, or in a container that has BPA or some other chemical that's going to leach into your food. And then you heat it in that and you are releasing even more chemicals into your food. So there's a lot of layers to this. We actually divorced our microwave. I remember my youngest was 2, and we had a microwave and then an oven underneath, and the oven went. I was like, well, let's get rid of the microwave too, and we got a double oven. So on leftover night, it's harder. It really is. Like we have 10 things that we're reheating, and I'm like, oh, what a mess. You know, everything's all these pots and pans, but it is healthier for you not to use your microwave.
And if
Just
someone does have a microwave and they're unwilling to get rid of it, you would probably recommend like not standing. Well, try
yeah.
not to use it, but if they use it, not standing right next to the microwave
Yeah, don't
when
like peering in. But the other thing I would say is microwave's somewhat lower on my hit list, because what I want to understand is what are you eating and how are you living? And it's not usually the first thing that I'm saying, okay, you got to get rid of your microwave. That's like once you've fixed your food and you fixed your lifestyle and you've leveled up all this stuff, I'm like, okay, let's get rid of the microwave. But
Yep.
it's relatively low on but if you're going to use it, no plastic in the microwave, period. Has to be ceramic.
Yep, I agree. How about flame retardants? Can you talk a
Oh,
little bit about those?
yeah. So if you're a smoker, you need flame retardants in your bed. Okay. Let's set that aside. But think about it. Flame retardants happen because we all not you and I, but our ancestors lived in tenements, thickly settled. And if one person set their bed on fire, they set the whole block on fire. So it was a huge hazard many years ago. Now, if you're a smoker, definitely get a bed with flame retardants. However, if you're not a smoker, the odds of you being in your bed when you have a fire are so small as to not justify the harm that the flame retardants are doing to you. So they're tremendous endocrine thyroid disruptors. And so if you think about it, you spend 8 hours, maybe more every day in that bed, and you are pulling in those flame retardants into your body, and they then disrupt the thyroid and the rest of the endocrine system too. So it's really important, if you're getting a bed, to do your best to not get flame retardants in it. That goes for furniture too, actually. If you're buying a new couch, if you're buying a futon, if you're buying whatever furniture you're buying, it's important to look for, hey, does this contain a flame retardant in it?
Yeah, and I think definitely the bed would be a priority because
Yeah.
hopefully you're spending at least 6, 7, 8 hours at night getting sleep, hopefully
Yeah.
more towards the
Yeah.
7, 8 hour range. And, so if you're spending a third of your life in the bed, you want to have a bed that is not only the flame retardants, but of course, just other chemicals too. Just there's
Yeah.
Naturepedic. I actually have an avocado mattress,
Yeah.
and
I have a birch.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and do you think, as far as, well, let's, I guess what I was going to ask you, since we were talking about the bedroom, is like, air purification systems for
Yeah.
the house, but what do we actually, that kind of leads us into what to do, like, to reduce one's toxic load. But before we go there, are there any other toxins, any other chemicals that I didn't bring up? I mean, I know there's
Yes.
a lot of them, but are there any that I missed that you really wanted to focus on, or did I like hit the more important ones?
I would say the ones I would add in is, I would say, if you pump your own gas, stop, because you're being exposed to the gasoline additives. Those are extremely harmful for you. If you are wearing makeup or using nail polish, and let's start with makeup. You want to make sure your makeup is natural, because phthalates are a huge source of endocrine disruption. And a lot of makeup contains phthalates, as do plastics. Nail polish also disrupts the system. And then water quality is really important, because some people live in areas where their water is not safe. So if you want to know if that's you, so test your water, know whether it's reasonable for you, and then filter it if it's not, because your skin is both a detox organ and an absorption organ. So if you're applying toxins every time you get in the bath and you sit in the bath, it's not safe for you. So know what you're getting exposed to.
Okay, I'm actually glad you brought up the water. So I'll quickly ask you, just in your opinion, obviously everyone has different opinions, but what do you recommend as far as water purification, at least drinking water? Is it more
Sure.
reverse osmosis, or, other types of filtration systems, or?
Yeah, so it really depends what kind of water you have. And so if you have municipal water, that's different from well water. So you're going to need to tailor your response, tailor your reaction based on what you have. So we have municipal water. The quality is pretty good. The perchlorate was a little bit high, so we have, and then we wanted to make sure that there was no fluoride and no other things. So we have a number of levels. We have a whole house water filter. My favorite one, because of the flexibility of it, is Aquasana. And what I mean by that is, if you have well water, you're going to get the thing that irradiates it. But we don't have well water. We don't need to worry about bugs. So, but they have an irradiation option, and then they have the filtration for various stages of what you're dealing with. So I really like that, because it's components you add on together. And then if you have high levels of perchlorate, the only thing that gets rid of it is reverse osmosis. And there's no whole house reverse osmosis that I've found. So you have to put it on point of use. So this is where I start to say, pick your battles, right? Because like I said, we have 4 kids, and we've done all these DIY projects and expanded the house. And so now, like, we have all these bathrooms, and how many filters am I going to put on my house? So you could put one on everyone. What we say to the kids is, don't drink from your bathroom. Drink from my bathroom. Drink from the downstairs bathroom. We have selected filters. So pick your battles, right? Always pick your battles. And we put the whole house filter and then the point of use, and go from there. But water quality is important.
Yeah, definitely it is, which is why I asked you. I wanted to get, I give people my opinion every now and then, but it's nice to get the opinion from another practitioner, especially one that wrote a book that focuses on toxins. So,
Yeah.
so thanks for letting us know. And so what are some action steps people could take to reduce one's toxic load?
Sure. I always recommend starting with food. No question, because you do it 3 times a day, maybe more, right? Maybe you're like, eat 5 times a day. Eat amazing food. Organic. Okay, here's the ideal. Organic and local. I live in Massachusetts. There's no local food right now. So that sort of goes out the window. But if you can, organic, local, minimally processed, meaning you can identify what it is based on what it looks like. So it's not like mystery, right? Don't eat mystery food. And then sugar kind of falls into that category of alcohol. So minimal sugar is very inflammatory, disrupts every system in the body. And so try to minimize your sugar content or avoid it. Okay. Don't drink alcohol, or drink very little. Make sure your coffee is mold free, and don't drink from plastic bottles. It's not just plastic water, it's plastic bottles, period. Okay, that's the food. And then the next really impactful thing is, especially for women, because we use so many products in the course of a day, is whatever you're running out of, so there's not magical, like you have to do this or this first. Whatever you're running out of is the thing you should focus on, because you're about to buy it. So if you're about to buy something, go to ewg.org or Think Dirty and look up the product you're using. Maybe you hit the jackpot, you got it right, and it's healthy, clean, cool, keep going. But if it's not highly rated, then that's the opportunity to look for a replacement. And then when you're ready to order that. And as you do that in the course of a year, I mean, I can't tell you how many things we order in the course of a year. It's impactful. If you say, okay, every time I order, I'm going to level up. You're going to make a huge difference over the course of a year. This is not a thing you do in a week. This is not even something you do in a month. This takes, I mean, I'm 3 years in, and by the way, you get greenwashed if you don't look at the what the EWG or Think Dirty say. These are both apps. You can totally get snookered. So I'm all excited. I find this new product. I think it looks great. I forget to check EWG because there's a sale and I'm running late and I'm running around and I buy it and I'm all psyched. And then like a month later, I go, oh, well, that was silly. I never checked that. Let's check that. And then I'm like, I got greenwashed, because the package is like all natural, no chemicals. Well, you know what? Not as good as they said it was. So be careful with the things that are touting how amazing they are. Don't take their word for it. Go to EWG or Think Dirty. So iterate. As you are getting new things, clean it up. I had a patient who had really high flame retardant in her system and thyroid disruption. And I said to her, did you just get a new bed? She goes, I did. And I was like, okay, then. So if you just got a new bed, get a good air purifier, right? Like, it's a lot of money to buy a bed. But if you're in the market for a bed, get one without flame retardants in it. If you're in the market for a couch, get one without flame retardants in it. Make choices when you have the ability, control the narrative and change the outcome. Okay. You don't have to get rid of all your furniture at once, though. That's not sustainable.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, it's definitely better just to get an air purifier, and then next time you're on the market for a new couch or new mattress, like you said, then try to get one without flame retardants.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's so just kind of to summarize. So to start with food, and you spoke also about water, and then the cosmetics, cleaning products, cosmetics, and like you said, furniture if you can, but if not, just when you get furniture the next time, just make sure. And then in the meantime, maybe if you do have, a mattress, for example, like you said, especially if it's newer, how about if someone has a mattress that's like 5 years old, would you still recommend getting an air purification system? Do you recommend,
Probably
I guess,
not.
in general for just?
I think they're great in general. If you have an older mattress, it's probably done the majority of its off-gassing, although you maybe not, because it's designed to be the life of the mattress. So I'm not sure actually if you're still getting exposed to that. I would say you're never going to regret getting an air purifier, right? You're not going to be like, oh, my air's clean. No, you're never going to say that. So it's one really nice way to level up. So you won't regret it. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, we have one for the office and actually a few for the home. I just wanted to again get your input with that. So, yeah, thank you for sharing. And where can people find out more about you? Obviously, there's the book. Definitely check out. Dirty Girl, Ditch the Toxins, look great and feel freaking amazing. And I assume, well, I know you could get it on Amazon because that's where I got it, on Amazon, and maybe on your website too. But
it's cheaper for people on Amazon. So I said, go to Amazon. And then we have a free guide that's meant to be a companion guide to the book. Because now that you're ready to clean up your life, you might be like, well, what's the best pan to use? And what's the best cleaning product to use? And what's the best mattress to use? So we put that all in a guide for people. That's on our website. It's 5journeys.com/promo. And the 5 is spelled out. I'm sure it'll be in the notes. So I'll make sure you have the right spelling. And then on all of the social media handles, so Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, I'm Wendie Trubow, MD. And my first name has an IE in it, not a Y, because of a decision I made when I was 13, but I stuck with it. And our website is 5journeys.com. And then our podcast is the 5 Journeys podcast, Live Like You Matter.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you again
Yeah,
so
my
much
pleasure.
for this interview. Yeah, I learned a lot. I'm sure the listeners learned a lot, and they'll definitely learn a lot more in the book. Again, there's
Yeah.
so much more that we could
Yeah.
have covered, but obviously just limited time here, and it would have taken like an all-day interview to cover everything in the book. So definitely check out Dr. Wendy's book. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Wendy, for the interview. Do appreciate it.
My pleasure, Eric. Great to be here.
All right, so let's just see for questions. I got a little bit distracted early on because I got a message. I'm streaming to like 3 different places, as I told you before we started, but I got a message that said that it wasn't streaming, but I think it was one. It's still streaming, but it must be just one because there are people on, that are on here. There's actually at least one comment. So yeah, I was just like worried. I'm like, should I like interrupt, just like stop and, because I didn't want to like record if it wasn't actually recording. That was the first thing. And it looked like it was still recording. And then again, it looked like people were still on. So I got early on, I was like blanking out for like a few seconds because I never got that message from StreamYard. So,
yeah.
So if you have questions, so people already, there are some questions here. So, Dr. Wendy will stay on for a few minutes and answer your questions. And we got Jenny. Actually, a good question. So Jenny asks, what's the best cookware brand to use for cooking and storing food? If you have any brand suggestions.
Jenny, this is a great question. So I don't have brands per se. I look for glass wherever possible, because that's really great. Silicone, as long as you're not putting hot stuff in it, I'm okay. For storing sandwiches and smaller items, the silicone bags are okay. But I usually look for glass or metal. There are some nice ones that are metal, especially, if you have soups, those are really difficult to put into a glass container. So metal with a top is a reasonable choice. But I don't have brands. That's like the one thing I don't have brands for.
How about ceramic when it comes to cooking? Is that okay? Or
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I agree with like storage, glass, and then for cooking, we, glass, but then also ceramic, and we also have some stainless steel cookware as well. So, and okay, cool. Well, thanks for that response. And Jenny also says thank you, and you're welcome, and thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay, so someone in the Facebook group, after hearing your mattress advice, thoughts on foam style pillows?
Oh man, pillows are they're so like personal, right? So pillows are tough because I have not yet found one that is clean. I know. Well, let me back up. Avocado and Birch, which are the 2 mattress companies that I love, both have pillows. They're too hard for my neck. They're made for like 7-foot tall men with huge shoulders and who can deal with a pillow that's, 1.5 feet off the bed, or maybe they're just decorative. I'm not sure. So I have not yet found a pillow. I would look to see if you can pull out some of the stuffing from those. Actually, I have some at home. I'm going to do that tonight. See if I can pull out some of the stuffing, because that would make it reasonable, because the materials they use are clean and safe. So I would look at Avocado and Birch, but just know they're firm and they're big.
Yeah, I agree. I don't use the avocado pillow. Just I wasn't crazy about it either. But it's a good question, because honestly, I don't really. I'll be upfront. I don't know what pillow, like, as far as I didn't really think about the toxin. Like how that got, So that's actually a real good question too. So one thing I missed, and thanks for that question. So let's anything to help with Graves' disease, especially with the eyes. I can handle it, or you can handle it. It's I mean, it's autoimmune, obviously. So I mean, toxins definitely could play a role with that, but then other things too, like the diet, the food that you eat, gluten, dairy, and just stress, sometimes gut infections, gut dysbiosis. So there's so many different things that could cover. And I'll let Dr. Wendy in a few seconds give if she has any input. But I will say for Graves', like all autoimmune conditions, you need to find and remove the triggers. I know selenium, not just experience with patients, but there is research showing that selenium also helps with Graves as well as other conditions too, like Hashimoto's. But just, it's hard to give specific recommendations because everybody is different. And
Right.
what I would say, definitely follow some of the, not, some of the guidelines that we discussed here and in Dr. Wendy's book. That, definitely check out her book for more information on reducing your toxic load, and then just try to do as much as you can from a diet perspective. And this might be a situation where you might decide to work with a functional medicine practitioner, but definitely some things you could do on your own, like we discussed today. And again, from a diet perspective, stress management perspective, and if those things aren't helping much, definitely consider working with someone else. And I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I would echo everything you said. I would especially with Graves, I'm a huge fan of working with someone as opposed to trying to hack it on your own, because you can go into a storm and that's not safe. So I'm always like, what's safe? What's not safe? That's not safe. So you want to make sure you're well managed and supervised. We've had some success with patients who are super strict on food, managing all the parts of life, the diet, the exercise, the sleep, the food, and then did vitamin C IVs. And that was impactful for them and actually reversed the Graves' disease, which was really cool to watch, because we did her titers every 2 weeks and we watched them come down. It was pretty amazing. So I would say work with a functional medicine provider. That would be my big plug for people like us.
Yeah, exactly. And that's cool about the IV vitamin C. So that's
it was
that's
impactful.
Yeah. All right. So let's see. So, Jenny has a question about cast iron pots and pans.
Oh, I was like, what's the question? No, the cast iron, as long as they're reputably made, they should be fine.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we have one cast iron pan that we use for like grilling and stuff. Yeah. So we don't use it a lot, but a few times. Yeah, actually, we've been using it more lately. So I was gonna say a few times a month, but yeah. So I agree with that. And then Jenny, you are welcome. And so, any advice for clean, safe laundry soaps? Are commercial soaps bad for our toxic load?
I got snookered on this one. This was one that I fell in the hole on, and I got this brand. I'm not going to say them, okay, because I don't want to smash them. But I got a brand, and then I came up for air and looked, and it wasn't clean. So my favorite safe laundry soap is actually what I use to clean everything in my house. So I don't use the laundry soap to clean the other stuff, but it's the same brand. So Aspen Clean, ASPEN, like the tree, is highly rated, EWG certified, and it started out when I was looking for floor cleaners, because I wanted to replace the cleaner that I'd used for a million years that my mom had. I mean, this is what I grew up with. And then I was like, oh, that's not clean. I need something. So I started using them for floor cleaner. They have window cleaner, surface cleaner, dishwashing detergent, and laundry detergent. So I use everything. Here's the best part. You can put it on auto ship. And if you forget it, like me, you'll have double stock because you over ordered, if you're someone like me. But no, it's a wonderful company. Everything is safe for laundry detergent. And then also dishwasher, they have a separate line for that. And then commercial soaps, I would have to assume, are bad for toxic load, because what's in there? Like, what is that? What are they using? Bleach is really bad. It turns into perchlorate, another thyroid endocrine disruptor. So I would say probably the commercial soaps aren't where you want to lean into, but go for Aspen Clean. It's a wonderful company.
Yeah, that's good to know. I'm going to check that out. We don't use the commercial soaps, but the one that we use is more natural. But now that you make me think twice, about, well, maybe I need to double check, or maybe I should just switch to the one you're using and just check it out. And all right, so Jenny, another question here. So I use selenium 200 micrograms. Twice per. Okay, I used a higher dose. I used 400 micrograms a day, and to help with my Graves' eye disease. Yeah, selenium is one of those things where you want to be cautious about the higher doses. I will say sometimes, as long as you don't go crazy with the doses, the higher doses could work better. But I'm quite, especially like a platform like this where it's not a patient, I would never. I would never give a specific recommendation anyway, but still, I'd hate for someone to take like 400 micrograms a day and then, have problems with having too much selenium. But yeah, selenium could do wonders, not just with Graves' thyroid eye disease, but other conditions as well. And okay, yeah, and Jenny just said vitamin C IV. Nice. Yep,
Yeah.
I agree. And
Works really well.
all right, I think that's it. Last call for questions. Are there any other questions for Dr. Wendy here?
Bueller. My kids don't know that reference. It kills me.
Really, we just had I have 2 teenage daughters. We just watched that. I think last year, I think it was Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So, and they did like it. So
they wouldn't watch it. They were like, "This is so boring." I'm like,
"Oh, really?
This was my childhood." We're gonna watch The Breakfast Club next.
Yeah, I've been there too, where I've had them watch shows that I liked and they didn't like, but that actually they enjoyed. Maybe they just didn't watch it long enough. Maybe they gave up after like 20 minutes and all that. So, yeah. But I thought there was another question. Maybe not. Okay, I think. Oh, here we go. All right, nope. I know the answer to this. Are 5-gallon water jugs safer than small bottles?
Nope. Sorry to be the bad news bear. Thank you for tuning in, but no, the plastic's just really bad for you.
Yeah, some will say, and I made this argument a long time ago. Again, I know better now, but probably like 15 years ago or so, my wife and I, we were guilty of that too. We were, bringing in the 5-gallon when we were, renting, and not having our own place. It was convenient, just have someone, and we were justifying, well, it's the hard plastic and not the soft plastic, but yeah, and maybe it's not as bad. I don't know, but it's still plastic, like you said. And how, like you were saying earlier with the question, how do you really know? It's not like you could really, like at least individually, it's not like we could, test the water to see how much of the, how many xenoestrogens, the xenoestrogen load, but yeah, and also I will say there's, you're probably familiar with Mountain Valley Springs?
No.
Yeah, they're spring water out of a glass bottle.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
And they actually, in some areas, they do deliveries. So like they have a 3-gallon glass thing, kind of like equivalent to the 5-gallon, but it's in glass and it's only 3 gallons. But that's an option too, because it could get tedious buying the liter bottles and, you could get them by the case, but still that might work better if someone doesn't want to get any type of filtration system in their home.
Yeah, I mean, you can do it. It's a hard one, Eric, because you think about it, like when you think about, okay, you're going to ship. If you're shipping, you're going to ship this stuff cross country. I have a patient who actually got the glass water bottle shipped to her. But then the things that we're not talking about is what's the impact on the earth? Because the earth, even though I don't want to sound like a tree hugger, but I am a tree hugger. Like we need to take care of the earth, because the more toxic the earth is, the more toxic we are. And so my plug would be, you could do a Berkey water filter. Those are fantastic. They're countertop, or because they're big, you could put it on the floor and make it like a statue, make it look like something nice. But there are ways to do this that you don't have to get something shipped to you regularly. That's also an impact on the earth and impacting us by sort of trickle down.
Yeah. Yeah. Good points. Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that. And then, so can we filter the 5-gallon water to make it safer?
Yeah, I'm sure you can. Definitely. There's always about like, how do you level up, right? Make a better, do what you can, put it through the filter. Sure. It's like an air filter. You're not going to regret doing it.
Yeah. I guess the thing is, I was thinking that maybe I'm misreading it, but wouldn't that, like, what do you want to just put your own water through
right.
Or, just get a filter and not do that? That would seem a little bit tedious to do that.
But if you're someone who lives in Flint, you don't have a choice. If you live in a place where your water quality is unsafe, you definitely don't have a choice of it. You have to do bottled. And so then you would say, okay, bottled is safer than tap, and now filter the bottle, and that's even better. So yeah, I think that would be a reasonable choice.
Yeah, even if I know, again, some people, if they rent, they can't like install a filter like reverse osmosis, but they're, or whole house filter, for example, like you have, they can't do that either. But I know there are some over-the-counter reverse osmosis systems. I don't know how good they are, but I guess that's also an option too. Just I'd hate for someone to get the 5-gallon and then go through the process. It's like almost you're doing two things, getting the the 5-gallon jug and then like running it through the filter. So
this is where it comes down to do your best. Do your best, pick your battles. If you are like, am I going to filter my water or go for organic food? As long as your water quality is reasonable, I'd go for the organic food. Like you just have to make choices that work. You can't walk a mile in anyone's shoes. I can't walk in anyone's shoes. So I don't want to be like, you have to do this. Just do your best. Do your best and don't let it make you crazy, because that's a stressor and that's bad for your liver, your adrenals, and your thyroid also. So don't let this stuff be stressful. Make it a game. How can you level up? How am I going to level up? And if you screw up, be nice to yourself. I screw up all the time. I screw up all the time. It's like, okay, learning point.
Yeah, we all screw up. As you said, we just have to learn from it.
Yeah.
All right. So Ashley asks, if you have to get drinking water from a water machine, what should you put in it if you shouldn't use a 5-gallon plastic jug?
So if you have access to a glass jug, that would be optimal, or metal. Glass or metal would be ideal if you have access to those. And if you don't, and you only have the hard plastic jug, drink it. Don't leave it in your car. Don't let it heat. So they do leach even without heat, but with the heat, they leach more. So just make sure it's not in a hot space where it's leaching so that you're getting less of the phytoestrogens.
All right. Yeah, thanks for that response. And okay, so we're out of questions. And again, thank you so much, Dr. Wendy. Again, appreciate your time. Yeah, and also sticking around to answer questions. And again, we'll plug your book one more time. Just definitely get Dr. Wendy's book again on Amazon, like I did. And again, it's called Dirty Girl: Ditch the Toxins, Look Great, and Feel Freaking Amazing. And yeah, again, thank you so much. And yeah, I say this a lot with others too, just because there's always so much information. But with you, definitely we'll need to do a part 2 in the future, just because again, there's so many other things. But until then, it's going to be a while. So definitely check out her book. Don't wait until part 2. Go out, get her book on Amazon. You definitely won't regret it. And again, thanks again, Dr. Wendy, and hope everyone has a great rest of their Friday and a great weekend ahead.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.